of Snow and Whirlpools by Orpheus Kidwell, Chapter 1. Friends with the Enemy. She saw him right there on the ground, asleep like he was saved. Yuki Haku, dressed in a pink kimono, and her choker around her neck, was confused on what to do as she looked at the prone form of one of the genin that helped take Kashitame harm, Zabuza-sama. She was just out gathering herbs to heal her master, and comes to find one of her master's enemies asleep, and she has no senbone. What is she supposed to do? Before she knew it, the ice user found herself above him, and she knew she was prepared to strangle the blonde. His hair was set in spikes held back by a Konoha headband. His face was tan with 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. He was dressed in a black shirt and ambu pants, black fingerless gloves, and a trench coat that looked to be holding at the very least 7 scrolls. There was a ninja pouch on his left hip, another right below it, and his ankles and feet were wrapped in bandages. While he wore jet black sandals, he was dressed completely for stealth. Suddenly his eyes shot open, 2 orbs of the deepest cerulean she had ever seen, deeper than the ocean itself. Quickly, Haku put on a smile that only the best could tell was fake. "Why, hello there," she said cheerfully. "I was just about to wake you. You know it's not very safe to sleep in a forest." The boy stood up and chuckled. "Nah, I'll be fine. I've been through enough danger to have a sense of when to be careful." Haku kept her smile up, but on the inside, did he know? No, it's not possible. Not even a censor can tell someone's emotions. Maybe I lost this chance, but no more. "Are you a shinobi then?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Yeah, Uzumaki Naruto, genin of Konohakura at your service," he stated cheerfully, but Haku saw something in his eyes, something she very well. The loneliness, fear, anger, hatred, desire, eyes like she held before Zabuza-sama found her, only much, much worse. She smiled at him, keeping the act up. "That is quite amazing, Naruto-san. I am Yaku Haku." And Naruto grinned foxily at the pale girl, and for some reason it made her face warm a little, but she was able to get rid of her blush. "Nice to meet you, Haku-chan," he said, and this time her blush came back. No one she had ever met referred to her as Chan, not even Zabuza-sama. "So are you picking flowers then?" he asked curiously, and she nodded. "Hi, Haku-san, I am picking herbs to make a salve for my friend. He's injured and needs it to heal." He looked at her and smiled slightly, not the grin from before, but this one somehow looked more genuine. "Can I help you, Haku-chan?" She was taken aback by that, but nodded anyways. "Hi. You see the ones in here? I need more of them." He studied them for a second and nodded. The two began working to find the herbs as they talked. "So, Naruto-san," "Just Naruto, please. I don't like formalities much." "Hi, Naruto. Why were you out here? Were you training?" she asked, hoping to get some information on him for the next battle. "That's part of it," he sighed. My team hasn't exactly see eye to eye with me. I got into an argument with Sasuke, my teammate, and Sakura, my other one, and she usually takes his side, and she's little more than his fangirl. I just wanted to see whether Sasuke had any tips for Katanjutsu, since I have an affinity for the fire element, but he just scoffed and told me I would never be able to do anything. Then Sakura agreed and yelled at me for being a baka and tried to hit me. Damn, Kakashi Sensei just stayed where he was at the table, reading his Smut Ichi Hacha while it happened. So I decided to just leave the house and come here to train up. Haku frowned at his explanation. "Your team doesn't sound very productive," Haku commented as she grabbed another herb. "In fact, it sounds as if you never get along. Wouldn't that get you killed in the ninja world?" she asked with false curiosity. "Yeah, but it's not like I have any choice. I mean, not really. The only reason I'm even able to be a shinobi is because of the spoiled Uchiha on my team. The council will do anything to help. The council will do anything to keep him happy, whether they do everything to try and keep me from learning. He sighed. Haku was truly curious now and looked at the blonde. What do you mean? Shouldn't they wish for their soldier to be the best they can be? You would think that, wouldn't you? He shook his head. Everything I know, I taught myself. Some of the jonin who know about my predicament help me out from time to time, training, scrolls, supplies, even bringing me lunch now and again. But I can't say that there are more of them than I have fingers. Another sigh escaped his lips. Sorry for ranting on Haku-chan. I don't want to force my problems on you. She smiled sadly. Not to worry, Naruto. I am quite okay with it, even with that. You're pretty strong, right? The boy smiled, another of his smiles that didn't look fake, and Ako found she liked that smile. I suppose so. With all that happened, I have to be. So, do you have something precious? A person that means the world to you, like a girlfriend? He asked, his searing blue eyes staring into her own chocolate ones. That's not what I meant, Haku argued, a deep crimson blush flooding her cheeks. After she was in control, she smiled. No, a friend that you would give your life for. The blonde's eyes seemed to wander as he was lost in memories and thought. I used to Haku-chan and I tried to keep her safe, but I just wasn't strong enough. She was like a mother to me since I never knew my own. Haku saw the despair in his eyes as well as the happiness at remembering his precious person, so she put one of her slim hands on his shoulder. Would you like to tell me about her? He smiled sadly. My own mother, a great kunoichi known as Uzumaki Kushina, died the day I was born. From stories I've heard, she was as strong as the Yandemo Kage, Namikaze Minato, the Yellow Flash, and became known as the Red Death of Konoha. The Flash, the Konhakuri no Akashi. She was exceptionally strong with her genius and seals, her chakra chains, her kenjutsu style, and her affinity for Suton, surpassing even that of the Nine Dame Hokage, who could pull water right from the air. She was also a student of the Slug Princess Senju Tsunade, along with Hyuga Hitome and Uchiha Mikoto, one of the few Akonichi teams that made it to Anbu together. After her mother's death, both of her teammates, Mikoto and Hitomi, tried to adopt me, but the council would not allow it, unfortunately, so I stayed an orphan. Hitomi-chan and Mikoto-chan were the only two people that saw me as human and not for my differences everyone hated me for. They didn't care that they were wives to the two most powerful clan leaders to Konoha. I was like their son, and they would never abandon me. I even grew to see their children as my own siblings. Hinata was the shy sister, and Sasuke was the brother who always wanted to be stronger. Hanabi was the little sister who wanted to prove herself, and Itachi, he was the older brother we all looked up to, but Hitomi-chan fell deathly ill after Hanabi Himoto's birth, and in 6 months her health deteriorated so much that she died, leaving Hiyashi, her husband, as clan head and father of two. Hinata, Sasuke, and I were only 6 years old. It was really sad because Hinata withdrew into herself, became even meeker than she was, stuttering like crazy and blushing over the smallest things. I think that since I was the closest she had to family, she grew an obsession towards me, following me everywhere I went like a lost puppy and always tried to impress me. Sasuke, he seemed fine, but he became a little colder to us after the woman he saw as his Obasan died. I just trained harder, hating that I couldn't help her, that I was useless. I forced myself to become stronger, faster, smarter, and I had to refine my chakra until more and more so that I could reach one of my goals of learning medical ninjutsu. My difference towards everyone else stopped it though. I kept trying harder and harder just as Sasuke was getting colder and not a meeker then Haku asked. She didn't care about the information for Zabuza-sama anymore. She was enthralled by this boy's story. 3 years later, we were on the road to recover. Hinata had gained enough confidence to finally master a few katas of the Juken, and Sasuke was open. The only with us, Hanabi and older his older brother Itachi. Then tragedy struck when we were 9. Sasuke's family suffered a great loss. Mikoto died. She asked with a gasp. Uchiha Itachi murdered all of the Uchiha besides Sasuke. He was stuck in a coma of shock for a whole month and a half, and when he finally recovered enough to return to the Konoha Academy, he wouldn't talk to anyone. All he ever did was train and brood about how he will kill his brother Itachi and avenge his. Hinata was so depressed after the incident of losing the other mother figure in her life. She tried to kill herself 7 times in 2 months. She became a shell of the sister once had and cried herself to sleep. She was even worse with her obsession with me. She practically worshipped the ground I walked on, and her meekness disappeared for rage at anyone who dared insult me, even slightly or accidentally. My entire sacred family turned either dead, insane, or criminal, and I was powerless to stop it. So you know what I did? I trained more and more. I only did the bare minimum necessary to pass the academy, sleeping through classes, all the while getting better and better, but it didn't take away the pain or the guilt. I could have become Genin after Hitami-chan's death or after the Ichiya massacre, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't leave my two mentally unstable siblings and go off on dangerous missions, perhaps as an Nambu by now. Even Hanami-chan, my poor little sister, she became completely obsessed with taking over as clan head, beating Hinata and everything, and Hiyashi could do nothing. If the public knew of his daughter's insanity, it would ruin the Hyuga clan, so I have to get stronger. It may be a lost cause, I know it, but my siblings, I just know that I might be able to save them somehow one day if only I could get stronger. Then you truly are strong already, Haku said with a soft smile. You wish for power in order to keep your precious people safe. When someone fights for the precious people, that is when they truly become strong. The blonde smiled and looked at their baskets, frowning as he saw both full. It seems I must go and help my friend. Can I see you again, Haku-chan? Perhaps next time I can hear your story, he asked with a sad smile. Haku hesitated. She really shouldn't. She should stay with Zabuza-sama, not know this boy. She could have just said no, should have apologized and made up a story about this being the only day she would be here. Maybe her friend was a traveling merchant or something. Hi, I would like that, Naruto-kun, she said with a smile before walking off, a light blush on her cheeks at the thought of the boy, the cute boy with a past just as bad as hers. Maybe she really would talk to him again, but first, I'm coming to help you, Zabuza-sama. Uzumaki Naruto smiled to himself as he watched Haku leave the forest grove that he was in, carrying her basket away with a cute blush as she exited. Once she was out of sight, he frowned. She's just like me. He stayed to himself quietly and a audible whisper. I saw her eyes. They were part of a mask, hiding her true self, her loneliness, her despair, her anger, her isolation. Her mask is even easier to read and harder to understand than Anko's. What happened to her? Naruto shook his head, and on top of that, her chakra, her killing intent, her negative emotions. She's that hunter named from before. In the back of his head, the blonde heard a familiar voice. True, Kit, very true, but I felt little to no lying on her part. This Haku, she told the truth in most everything she said, even the last part where she wanted to come back and talk to you. I sensed deep pain with her very being, pain she has tried to bury within her. I don't know what happened to her or how she's dealing with the immense amount of hurt she is experiencing within herself, but she is definitely like you. What will you do about it? Kurama-sensei, the blonde thought back. I'm not entirely sure. She is an enemy of the mission, but I don't want to harm her more than she already is. She's like me, and I hate doing anything to those who already have enough pain within themselves. Or maybe my little kid has a crush. Kurama snickered in his mind as the blonde blushed slightly. Shut up, I do not. She was really cute though. You have my approval, Naruto-chan. Just shut up, Kurama, and let me train some more. Just then Naruto's stomach growled. Right after he gets some breakfast. With that, the blonde Jinchuriki ran out of the clearing, already having all his possessions within the storage scroll in his trench coat. One of 7 scrolls he always kept on him. Tazuna's house. Tsunami looked at the table curiously, wondering something. It was breakfast, and mostly everyone was already seated and eating. Well, seated anyways. Her father was on one deck eating the meager breakfast she served while drinking a little sake, and her son as well, minus the sake. The masked Jonin was eating while reading, and the black-eyed Uchiha boy seemed to be brooding over something while eating her cooking. The pink-haired girl was also seated right next to the Uchiha, in fact, but she favored staring at the emo-looking boy with hearts in her eyes instead of eating her breakfast. That was insulting. Was her food not good enough? Inwardly, the civilian woman panicked. Was she not a good hostess to the shinobi? Were they not comfortable enough and well fed? They had come and were protecting her father and her village from the good of their hearts when they didn't have to, and she wasn't being the best she could be in return. Oh no! Breaking the woman's negative thoughts was the opening of the front door, which caused Sasuke and Itachi to get up, kunai in hand, only to see it was Naruto. The silver and black-haired duo simply sat back down, wordlessly uncaring of the blonde. He didn't seem to care about them either, instead taking a seat at the table furthest from his team and next to Tsunami, where a plate was already set up for him. With a smile, he began speaking to Tsunami. Good morning, Tsunami. How are you? Your cooking smells delicious as always. She smiled at him, relieved that she wasn't being a horrible hostess to her village shinobi's protectors. Good morning, Naruto. I am very well, and thank you. Then the woman looked at the state of the boy's dress, dirty, covered everything. Where did you go last night? You didn't sleep outside, did you? After he finished his mouthful of food, he replied, Hi, Tsunami. I was out training, and by the time I finished, I was too tired to come back. I prefer sleeping outside anyways. It is more comfortable to me and reminds me of home. He smiled sadly before shaking his head. Anyway, I hope my team didn't argue too much after I left. They didn't give you any trouble? Tsunami shook her head. No, they were quite alright. Though Sakura was a bit loud, Naruto raised an eyebrow. No matter how much it her, welcomed her to be rude, she shouldn't. Sasuke and Kakashi were quiet enough, though, if you don't count Kakashi's giggling. Yeah, I suppose that's how I expected them to act. The blonde spotted Tazuna finishing with breakfast and at the door waiting. Anyway, it's my day to guard Tazuna, so I'll see you later, Tsuzame. Johnny, and with that he went to Tazuna and they made their way to the bridge. Zabuza's hideout. Zabuza's plan of dwelling within the village of Nami no Kuni was rather simple. On the edge of the village, within the forest of the northeast, just 2 miles outward, lay a large warehouse made of charcoal steel and covered in fading seals left over from the time that Uzushigakure still existed and was allied to the small island of Wave. It was some 30 feet high. It looked to be medium sized on the outside, but on the inside was a different story. Over 70 feet tall and well over 5,000 square feet, in 4 rooms, 2 for storage, 1 for a kitchen, and the last was a bedroom with 4 beds, 1 for Zabuza, Haku, and the Oni brothers, respectively. In the storage rooms were many different things the four had gathered over the years since their abandoning Kirigakure. Weapon scroll disguises Rio and all manner of treasure, gold and jewels, even at only A rank. Momochi Zabuza was a wealthy individual, but not near the wealth he needed for his true dream to fund the rebellion and kill Yagura so that the bloody mist would exist no longer and the true Kirigakure would be revived. Once more in the red room lay the prone figure of one Kirigakure no Kijin, Momochi Zabuza himself. The Kubikiri Bocho lay leaning against his bed, and Haku stood on his other side, a bowl of salve in her hands that she was treating his wound with each time her slender finger applied the healing solution. One of the most fearing missing men living winced at the stinging sensation it presented to his injured body. Gomen Nesai Zabuza-sama, the girl apologized once more for harming her master. Just get it over with, Haku, he replied. The quicker I'm able to move, the quicker I can kill that damn Kakashi Teme and get my pay for offering the bridge builder. He growled again as the stinging returned. Zabuza-sama, what about the genin with him? Haku asked cautiously, her mind still on the intriguing blonde she had met just 2 days ago. The genin, he thought, the pink one will die, definitely. Those boys show promise, though. Recruiting one of them might be beneficial. The black-haired boy had the look of Initisha, but the clan was known for nothing if not backstabbing. No, I don't think he would be a good long-term investment. Zabuza asked. And the blonde, Haku asked. Never know. I saw his eyes, Haku, just like yours. Bet I could get him on our side. If the hatred in his eyes was any indicator, he hesitated to protect that Konoichi. If I'm not mistaken, the other two on his team ignored him as if he were nothing more than the air or the ground they walked on. But that's besides the point and just wishful thinking, you know. Ako clenched one of her fists and brought up much courage as she could master. Ooh, what if? What if I could convince him to come with us? What if I could get him to our side? Zabuza set his gaze on the girl, eyeing her suspiciously. If you could, I suppose I could take him with us, yeah. If you can get him on our side, then I will let him come. The ex-Kirinin smirked suddenly. Does Haku have a crush on the little blonde genin? Haku fought down a blush as she applied more of the salve to Zabuza, a bit more forceful this time, and she very much enjoyed the yelp of pain that resulted. Tazuna's bridge. Naruto and Tazuna arrived at the bridge pretty quickly, and just as they did, the blonde noticed a worker coming up to Tazuna. It was apparent he wished to quit fear of his life as they had a conversation, and Naruto shook his head. So I gather this happens a lot nowadays, Naruto asked the man who nodded. I suppose this is your first time up at the bridge, ne? Well, my men are quitting left and right. I don't blame them either. They just want to stay alive, I suppose. And who am I to deny them safety? But I will finish this bridge, even I have to build it myself, for I am the super bridge builder Tazuna. Naruto smiled at his client's enthusiasm. So you'll really do it all by yourself? The bridge builder nodded. Hi. Though I have no wish to, I am a designer, not a worker. I'm nowhere near my prime, and I would likely die in the process of creating the bridge. I just wish I had a workforce that didn't keep leaving me. The blonde nodded and smiled. I believe I can help with that. I'm not too experienced with building, but Naruto made a single hand seal with his index and middle finger crossed over one another. Mass shadow clone jutsu in an instant, and a cloud of smoke later. At least 200 copies of the original blonde materialized. Just give them orders, and every time one is destroyed, the rest will get their memories. Tazuna gaped at the sheer amount of workers he just gained. This will cut the time for building by so much. Naruto laughed sheepishly and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, but unfortunately, I can only do this on my guard days because the other days I'll be training and need as much chakra as I can. But you'll get more workers every 4 days, Tazuna. Still, this is impressive. Can your teammates do this too? Tazuna was careful not to call the other three his friends, as it was apparent for one reason or another they were no friends with him. Well, Tazuna and Tsunami sure appreciated the kid for sure. He regularly helped Tatsumi cook whenever he was at the house and not training, and now he just gave Tazuna double the workforce he currently had. Uzumaki Naruto was something special, alright. No, it takes a lot of chakra to make even 5. I think Kakashi sensei can only make 10 at once. But thanks to my Kekkei, I have much more chakra than other people normally. I could make at least 5 times as this if I wanted, but I need these to learn more before I give you too many and wreck your bridge. The builder nodded and began doling out orders as the blonde stood to the side, keeping an eye on all of the things going on. The workers were working hard, but there seemed to be a sense of foreboding with them, an imminent doom they were prepared for, or at least preparing for. He could feel their fear and despair constant and looming through the negative emotion sense granted to him through being the Cuban jerky. This Gato is really evil. He deserves to die for all that he is putting these people through, all for greed too. He merely wishes to have more money and with it power, so he does all in his power to make sure Nami is in his vice-like grip, unable to become independent, unable to do anything for themselves whatsoever. This is why greed is one of the 7 deadly sins of the Western land's primary religion. This books I borrowed from the Konoha library. It's an indication greed is a deadly thing to any ailed by it and any who are victims to its evil. Every philosophical, aren't you, Kit? Yes, greed does do this to your ningen. It is most unfortunate, really. So much potential in your race to achieve things not even Akuma Yama Kami or Shinigami can do, all wasted on the sins of the few in power. Greed, pride, gluttony, wrath, envy, sloth, the true power of demons, relies not that of a chakra or our yokai or of our knowledge or our science. It remains in tempting those with a small seed of darkness in them into going down one of these 7 paths. It is a game of speech, not power, and one all Biju as well as the lesser demons have mastered over centuries of psychological games. Looks like my lesson with you have really paid off. You're thinking like a fox now, Kit. Should I be worried you approve? Wouldn't matter anyway. You're one of my few friends, Kurama sensei. Ever since you healed me on my 5th birthday when we struck that deal. Ah yes, I grant you a few abilities of the Yoko and teach you, and in exchange you give me access to your senses and keep me entertained with fights and tricking Konoha. Those pranks you pull are very fox-like. Painting the Hokage monument in broad daylight on the very day of graduation exam and outrunning all the Anbu. Very much a kitsune if I ever saw one. And very good for my training, you know. My stealth and speed have increased dramatically ever since I began my pranks, and it also got me a few of the better jutsu in my storage scrolls. Ah yes. Why have you yet to look in the one you got from? Not yet, sensei. I won't be like so many of the Hyuga and Uchiha before Nissan killed them anyways, and rely on one thing passed to me. My skills will be my own, plus I probably didn't even get my Kazan's Kekkei, you know. Yes, Kushina-chan was really special, but you'll find your own way, Naruto. I believe in you. Thanks, Kurama-sensei. I just hope I don't screw it all up. Team 7. Kakashi eyed his two remaining students. Well, one. Sakura never did anything productive besides staying out of the way. He would have to fix that sometime soon. They had already finished the tree walking way ahead of schedule. Sakura could at least do that, though she needed to increase her chakra reserves. Sasuke had worked to the ground getting the exercises finished. Once he found out that Naruto could do it, that certainly had been a surprise. Just what could he do? Now that he thought of it, Kakashi had never seen him not training, yet his grades at the academy were trash. The file said he slept through the classes on a regular basis, even more so than Shikamaru. What was going on? He had no clan, no tutor, and just a little help from a sympathetic Chunin, Jonin, or Ambu every now and then to give him the one tip he needed to move on. But it was eerie how powerful he was for a Genin anyways. Not that him or Itachi had been so strong at such a rank, but Naruto was the exact age a Genin should be, and yet he could probably take on all of the current Konoha Genin, and possibly even an experienced Chunin. The boy could already use some low-level Futon Jutsu, Dispel Genjutsu, make solid clones, and knew the Hokage's own Shadow Shuriken clone jutsu rather efficiently. Plus, he had his chakra control refined to a level that allowed him to fight on water, a skill most Chunin had trouble with until they were experienced. And then there were those scrolls he kept with him always. He had been reading one just last week, and Kakashi saw Sasuke trying to get it, only to fail, only to fall to his knees in immense pain as soon as he touched it. Then the blonde had proceeded to scold the Uchiha here about thinking before reacting. He had explained to him about how all of his scrolls were protected by seals that repel any chakra-based attacks, protect against the sharpest steel, were fireproof, and even would harm someone with either a nasty shock, a cutting blade of wind, or an immense burn if anyone that did not hold his chakra touched them. Sakura had proceeded to ask why he couldn't do that, and the blonde's answer was quite simple. Well, Sakura, if the Uchiha had bothered to remember about my heritage instead of blindly following the short-term path to more power so he could kill Itachi Nissan, then he would remember that us Uzumaki have Funjutsu in our blood, almost a Kinkagenkai, you could say. Seals are second nature to me. By now, Haruno, he should remember that next time he tries to take anything from me. Kakashi may not be the best with Finjutsu, but even he knew that those seals were at least level 6 or 7 alone, not even counting being able to cross them into one seal and then include a stored seal on each one. That had to be high level complex stuff, but only Jiraiya and the Sandame had such skill of those living. Kakashi doubted they could even do such a thing. Only Kushina and Minato sensei were really that good. Perhaps Naruto had inherited the skills of two Finjutsu masters from his parents. The silver-haired Jonin shook his thoughts away as he saw Sasuke prepare to cast a jutsu. Kakashi had promised to teach the Uchiha Genin a new katan technique if he could finish tree climbing. In less than a week, he did it in 2 days. Fire-style Great Firehound Jutsu. He opened his mouth and spewed forth a stream of orange fire that slowly began to swirl and shape itself into the rough shape of a canine before exploding outwards and throwing Sasuke back, his body littered in a few first-degree burns that would heal in no time. Sasuke-kun. Sakura ran to the fallen Genin and crouched next to him. Are you okay? Sasuke-kun, get away from me, he emotionally responded as he stood up and caught his breath with struggle. What did I do wrong, Kakashi-sensei? He demanded to know. Well, you used too much chakra that time. Didn't I tell you already? Too much chakra and it will explode. Too little and it'll burn out. Fire is the hardest element to manipulate the shape of Sasuke. Didn't you learn that already? Adaptable water is the easiest, followed by flowing wind. Steady earth will shape to your will, and lightning conducts through the right material, but fire is raging and only calm can control it. Sasuke growled, "Fine, I'll use less chakra this time." He got back up, ready to train again, and Kakashi's eyes smiled, as this time he used too little and the technique dispersed in seconds. The Jonin sensei of Team 7 then leaned against the tree, opening his ichi as Sasuke continued to try and continued to get burned, and giggled perversely. "Such naughty girls you are, Nagata-chan and Yahiri-chan, and such a lucky boy you are, Kona. Now I want you. Now I want to go to the village hidden in monsoons. If only it existed." Naruto Training Grove later that day. Nine-tailed Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto had his hands in the ram seal as he created a single clone, infused with a part of Kurama's soul and Yukai, allowing her to materialize in the world, even if only for a small time. Once the cloud of red smoke disappeared, she appeared in her human form. The queen of Kitsune was maybe 6 inches taller than her container, with long red hair that flew past her waist and shining crimson eyes with split pupils. She wore a crimson battle kimono with black edging that did little to hide her impressive hourglass figure, D-cup breast, and tempting curves. From the back of her waist, 9 bushy crimson tails with orange tips protruded, swaying gently back and forth, brushing each other and the surrounding flora of the grove. The demoness slightly opened mouth revealed the short fangs, and her hands had 2 to 3-inch claws on each finger of each side. Atop her head were fox ears, and on her cheeks were 3 whisker-like marks resembling Naruto's. Her feet were bare of anything and had no claws. Kurama stretched her limbs to loosen up after being stuck in a cage for so long. "Thanks for letting me out, Naruto," she said with a foxy grin. "You're welcome, Sensei. You know, I called you for something special, though," he told his Biju. "Yoko are known for 2 things, fox illusions and foxfire. My control is nowhere near enough to use illusions, but I know you know how to help me with fire." Kurama smiled. "Hi, Naruto-kun. I do know at least that, though I am much better with the yokai-powered foxfire. I can use all types. That is why you have an affinity to use it by holding me within you. I know quite a few katan jutsu that the Sarutobi scroll doesn't contain. I thought you might." Hi, I know. Now let's see about teaching you, ne. You will need to first begin on your fire nature manipulation. Just as Asuma showed you that with wind nature chakra, you must cut a leaf with only your chakra. Fire nature chakra can be trained by setting things alight. One of her foxtails grasped a dead stick from a tree and tossed it to Naruto, who caught it. The trick of training you fire affinity is to raise the temperature of your chakra enough to actually set the oxygen in the air on fire. The simplest way to take your first step is to heat up the stick with chakra by moving it faster and faster through the stick itself. The first lesson is to actually light the stick. I will give you the next exercise when you can accomplish lighting it on fire within 5 seconds. That will put your fire manipulation up to C rank, enough to teach you your first technique. "Hi, Sensei," Naruto nodded. "Good. As you know, our mental link is still active even while I'm a clown, so just contact me through there if you have trouble or are ready to move on, and I'll simply look through your eyes to see." "Where are you going, Kurama-sensei?" the blonde asked curiously. "I have an errand to do here in Nami, such a hunch I've had for the longest time. If I am right, then you will thank me Until then, train. Practice makes perfect. Kurama's and now was the last thing Naruto saw as she disappeared in a swirl of purple foxfire. Well, may as well get started, and with that, Naruto attempted to push his chakra into the stick faster and faster and set it on fire, only for it to explode into splinters. Too much chakra, this could take a while. Gato Corporation, Nami HQ. In a swirl of purple flames, Kurama appeared on the side of a large building of marble. It looked at least 5 stories tall, and she could feel, at the very least, 60 signatures in and around the building. So it looks like Gato is on the top floor, and though one other chakra signature is up there, presumably his secretary, a few others on the fourth and third floors, and the rest are obviously hired thugs to act as bodyguards. By the emotions they're emitting, this will be too easy. He should have hired at least a few missing in for protection. Fox illusion, false shadow. Her form suddenly was wrapped in a cloak of the surrounding shadows, of the illusion of her becoming invisible. This was the simplest and lowest ranked of all the invisibility fox illusions, and perfect to infiltrate the place. She used a bit of demonic chakra, then to stick to the wall, slowly crawling upwards to the top with the cloak of shadows concealing her from far from her form from all. She passed over the first 4 floors easily, seeing nothing interesting for her or her kit, but on the very top floor she cursed silently just as she thought Gato was inside his office as well as his secretary. She was a relatively plain woman of mid-40s by her look, with brown eyes, slightly tanned skin, and streaks of gray in her brow, which was set in a single bun at the back of her head, and wore a blue kimono with a light blue. For the age, it looked like they were talking. So, being a curious fox, Kurama performed a few hand seals, activating one of her secret Genkai she had acquired over her long life. Mangekyo Sharingan Kamui. Her red eyes showed 3 black tamus that quickly spun into the shape of a 4-armed star as she faced to the wall in front of her, still invincible. She smirked to herself. I love these Ningen bloodlines. DNA is just so fun to play with and so easy to manipulate if you know how. Although shinobi and kunoichi in my experiments were well worth the sacrifice, it is just too bad I was captured by Mita before I could reform Atu-sama's ability. And then Damo Orochimaru, finding all of my research and using it for himself. I swear I'll kill him if I ever see him. She shook her thoughts away through the paid attention to the conversation, keeping her regular Sharingan active as she could memorize it. He should be all healed up in 2 weeks, the secretary said, and then I believe Zabuza and Kakashi will in fact fight on Zabuza's own chosen battlefield. If my guess is correct, she continued, yes, that's perfect. By the end, the rest of the bandits I hired will have made it in Nami. After the battle is finished, regardless of the victor, I will make sure they kill the ninja, all of them. After that is all finished, then Nami will be under my complete control. He chuckled to himself, then stopped. Totsuki, is there really an Uzumaki among the Konoha ninja? She nodded. Hi, Gato-sama, she stated. If the reports from your spies in Nami are to be trusted, there is, even if he has blonde hair and blue eyes. Unlike most Uzumaki, he shows to have great amounts of chakra, one of the signs of the Uzumaki King Genkai. If so, it is no coincidence. I think Zabuza apprentice too. She is a Yuki. There's no possible way they know what I have in my vault is there. There were expensive enough of the black market, the Fugino Daikama, and that Uzumaki scroll cost a fortune. I thought both clans were dead. That's the only reason I bought them. If I had bought that Hyuga scroll from the Byakugan wielder and Taki, or Teruki Hirama's staff of my contact in Iwa, I just know I would have either climbed on me in months. I got to Sama. I don't believe they know yet, but perhaps it would be safe to double the mercenaries in case. I am not sure it would be a good idea to leave your most prized possessions unguarded, just in case they survive the battle. Gato nodded from his chair. You are right, Tsuki. Hire that second camp we know of just in case. That should bring our number past 700 easy enough to stop any getting. Hi, Gato-sama. I will send a messenger immediately. She bowed her head before dashing off to fulfill her employer's order. As the red-headed Yoko in human form looked at the short man in thought, eyes closed in concentration. This information, what should I do with it? The scroll, I absolutely must get it for Naruto, but the scythe? I know of it. It will freeze anyone without Yuki DNA from the inside out. A very painful and effective defense mechanism. Gotta probably had to transport it in some sort of high-grade chakra-draining container. This trip will be even more productive than I imagined. The possibilities, they are great. Gato never even noticed the sudden disappearance of a patch of shadows in his office as one nine-tailed Yako disappeared without a single trace elsewhere. With Haku made her way through the village of Nami, dressed in her civilian clothes once more as she headed to where she hoped Naruto would be, in that same grove as long as last time. Her thoughts had been occupied with only him since yesterday. He was an enigma. He seemed so cheerful, but she had seen his eyes more than once. Throughout the entire morning that he helped her, she caught that look in his eyes, the same look as hers, that look of loneliness, the loneliness which can only be brought by the voluntary shunning of others, by being persecuted for something out of your control, by being hunted simply because of what you hold without anyone's regard for who you are. That look that she held her entire time in Kiri after her parents died, Kasan by Tao-san's hand and Tao-san by my own. She shook that thought away long ago. Zabuza-sama had taught her to stay away from those thoughts, lest she go insane. To this day, her Tao-san was the only kill on her hands, even with being by Zabuza-sama's side all these years. Soon, Haku came upon the grove she had found her blonde companion in yesterday, and saw him. He was holding a single stick, no longer than a foot, in his hand, and appeared to be in concentration. Haku observed him in curiosity, and saw that the stick began smoking at the tip before it burst into flames. He grinned to himself, and thought Jutsu heard him mutter, "That was still 7 seconds. I need to cut the time by 2 before I can try the jutsu, just a little more practice." It was at this moment that Haku walked into the grove, and Naruto spied her. "Oh, hey Haku-chan." The blonde smiled to her. "I know you'd come back today." Haku smiled a little. "Yeah, I said I would, didn't I? So what were you doing, and how'd you get that stick to light up?" He grinned, but Haku noticed it didn't have the same feeling as the smaller smile he gave her yesterday. This one seemed practiced, fake, a mask. "Well, I got my sensei to tell me how to train in fire and nature manipulation," he stated. "Not supposed to light this stick on fire with my tracker in 5 seconds, and then she'll teach me a katan jutsu." "She?" Haku asked. "But isn't the only jonin that came with you a man?" she asked. Naruto smiled before sitting on the grass, motioning for Haku to do the same, so she sat across from him. "Yeah, I don't really think of Kakashi as my sensei, though. He hasn't taught me anything I know. Well, I suppose he did give me a small tip when I was 9 on how to train my speed, but I only have one true sensei. She taught me everything I know, for the most part, besides my abilities with futon manipulation and ninjutsu." "So, Haku, how's Zabuza doing?" The girl stared at him, looking at Naruto with wide eyes. He smiled that true smile of his then. the one that made her heart beat just a little for some reason. "Who is Zabuza?" she asked in somewhat convincing tone. "Please don't lie, Haku." The Kuni noticed the lack of Chan, and it bothered her more than it should have. "I won't tell my team about him, even if I'm sure that Kakashi already suspected Zabuza's still alive. I can tell he's special to you, and you know. Out of everyone I've ever met, you're the closest thing to a friend I have, right? My family is destroyed, my village despises me, and adults who don't try to assault, poison, or otherwise harm me either act as if I don't even exist, or only talk to me for about 5 minutes before leaving me alone for weeks at a time. Those of my own generation, my own ex-classmates in the academy, Sasuke, Sakura, Ino, and Kiba, despise me for different reasons. Shikamaru, Shino, and Choji are indifferent, and Hinata is half obsessed stalker and half insane bodyguard. It is quite sad, you know, that a girl I only just met treats me better than my entire village, and she is my supposed enemy. I also saw my pain in your own eyes, the loneliness. It hurts, right? Everyone either ignores you or attempts to kill you. You have a bloodline, don't you? Is that why you had to leave Kiri with Zabuza?" Haka suddenly found the ground interesting. Yes, I have the ice release Kakagenkai of the Yuki clan. I am the last member as far as I know. You see, my mother was also Yuki and she held the bloodline herself, but my father, he never even knew. When I was 8, I first discovered my Kakagenkai and showed my Kasan, and she told me to never do it again, but I didn't listen. Haku could feel tears gathering in her eyes, but ignored it. Instead, I used it in secret and tried to get better, and I did. But someone saw me without my knowing. One of Yagura's avid supporters, my own father. He knew he was just a normal civilian, so he accused it came from my Kachan. "What happened to Haku-chan?" Gato asked the girl after she stopped talking for a few moments. He could clearly see the tears in her eyes, but knew she needed to tell someone. He took a knife from the kitchen and asked her about it. My Kachan loved him, you know. She admitted it. She admitted she had kept her bloodline limit a secret from him, so he stabbed her 7 times. I could only watch in horror as her body was opened repeatedly by the knife. I still see it when I sleep sometimes, and then he turned to me. I could clearly see the look in his eyes, the look of hatred and contempt. And then he took a step towards me. I just reacted out of fear, and I only wanted to make a wall of ice like I had done so often before, but I didn't. My scream turns into mist, a mist that was just so cold it wouldn't affect me, and it didn't affect my mother's corpse either. But the Yuki, we have a special body. Our bodies are colder than others. That's why we can produce ice out of nothing by creating winds that are so cold they freeze water in the air. But Tao-san, he wasn't like that. The mist, it froze him solid into a statue of ice. Her tears were flowing freely now. I don't know what happened next, except that as soon as I touched him, the ice shattered. Tao-san was 1,000 shards then, and I couldn't do anything about it. The brown-eyed Kunoichi found herself crying into the shoulder of a boy her age she had only known for a day, and she didn't care. She had been holding it in for years. She needed to cry. Naruto rubbed Haku's back and stroked her hair, whispering words of comfort to the troubled Kunoichi. He knew just how important it was to let out your emotions. If he didn't have Kurama to comfort him through his life, who knows what would have happened by now. She didn't stop crying for over 2 hours, but the Jinchuriki didn't mind one bit and instead simply held her. When she stopped, she didn't move, and he felt he should talk. "Haku-chan, let me tell you a story of something that happened to me." Flashback. He told me, and Uchiha and Mikoto smiled to each other as they watched the trio of Hinata, Naruto, and Sasuke playing in one of the fields in the Uchiha compound, a game of hide and seek turned tag that Hinata was winning with her Byakugan. I still don't quite understand all of what happened to change our relationship. I don't know why everything was destroyed. The scene shifted to the funeral of Hyuga. He told me the entire Hyuga clan, Uchiha Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi, Uchiha Mikoto, and Uzumaki Naruto, all in attendance and dressed in black clothing to mourn her while the infant Hanami was held by Mikoto. I don't understand why everyone I loved had to leave. The scene shifted yet again with Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata laughing together as they made their way to Uchiha compound only to stop dead in their tracks as they saw all of the corpses of Uchiha and the blood everywhere. The slaughter, the trio ran inside to go find the mother figure they all loved and did, but she was dead. Their Nissan Itachi above the corpses of both his parents. Mangigo Sharingan spinning as he turned to look at the three coldly, and a second after his uttered pronounce of Tsukiyomi, Sasuke dropped to the floor, and he disappeared in a sunshin of ravens. But I do know one thing, Haku-chan. Even if they are gone, Mikoto-chan, Hitomi-chan, even Itachi-san, even so, I believe that they are still with me, protecting me, watching over me. I may not understand why they left, but I know that I will one day see all of them once more. But Naruto, if they're gone forever, don't you feel guilt for not being able to protect them? Of course I do, but I also can't help but feel proud that they believe in me. The scene shifted back to Hitomi's funeral, where in her will she gives Naruto a scroll that once belonged to Uzumaki Kushina, gave it to her, and another that details her entire taijutsu style she used as a kunoichi, since she wasn't a Hyuga by blood. At the reading of Mikoto's will, she gifted to him a scroll as well, one of the Cillian variety that contained one of her most prized possessions, a scroll of very wind and fire release jutsu she had copied, proud to pass it on to one of the only ones in Konoha who shared her affinities, a boy as much a son to her as Sasuke and Itachi. Naruto is sitting in the forest of death, wide-eyed, as he stares up at a man he never thought to see again. His Nissan, the Uchiha Nukin, looks at the blonde and gives a small smile, dropping to him one of the most prized Uchiha scrolls, a summoning contract used by Uchiha Madara himself. Because they believe in me, Haku-chan, I will fight on in their name. Even if I must be the one that everyone loathes, that everyone wants dead, I will be the one to carry the dreams of my mothers and my older brother. I will be Hitomi-chan's will to find peace for the Hyuga clan, Mikoto-chan's successor to find all of my family and protect them, and Itachi-ni's rival in finding a way to bring the world peace. Why are you telling me this, Naruto? Flashback end. Because, Haku-chan, I'm simply telling you to let your precious people live on and you don't become a copy of your mother and father, but share the dreams in your own special way. Do you understand? I think so. Thank you, Naruto-kun.